Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Soul Cats online reading. I'm glad that you could make some time for today's online reading. My name is Tamara Schenk, and I'm reading a few chapters from my book Soul Cats: How Our Feline Friends Teach Us to Live from the Heart. And there is just one soul cat here in the back who is joining us for this reading. So if you could just let me know if you can see me and if you can hear me before we get started, that would be great. And thank you. So technology seems to work. That's amazing. So I'm using StreamYard for going live. So if you could simply click the link that's above of this image, then you can allow StreamYard that they can show your Facebook name in the comments. So please feel free also to ask me questions. I see all of your comments here. I'm happy to answer this. So then let's get started with the reading, and I need my glasses for this. So the first chapter I'm going to read is called King of the Strays. Shortly after Mac's first dental restoration, when I was trying to deal with Flick's animal communication, I remained a little curious about Max. What had Mac's life been like? What was burdening his soul? So I asked Sylvia to have a talk with Max as well. A few weeks after the surgery, he could certainly find an open spot in his calendar in order to talk to Sylvia. Mac's communication has touched me deeply as well. Here are a few excerpts from Sylvia's conversation with Max. Yes, the surgery has damaged his self-confidence a bit, he told me, because he's now got a lisp. And he still has a strange feeling in his mouth. Dumb. Past. What he experienced. Well, quite a lot. He shows me a picture while we talk, showing him strutting through high grass. So in order not to get dirty and wet, that is sweet. I spend a lot of time outside. Sometimes it wasn't easy, but I was the king of the strays. Yes, that's exactly what he said. I was responsible for many other cats. I had a job. I protected them all and watched out for them. Some were sick or simply disappeared. Sometimes I still think back on it. Max shows me pictures. A big farm with machines and barns and buildings. When I was small, I was ill. I saw a tunnel and the light, wanted to go home because it's warm and easy there. But there was a woman with a good heart and a gentle voice. She helped me, took me back, and that's how I became Max again. He grins. Max never had a real home and he hates disorder. Everything must be in its place now, and he's doing well and feels so comfortable and at home. He enjoys it so much and is so grateful for it. That's why he can hardly relax and always has to look whether or not everything is still in its place or has suddenly disappeared. So that the soft carpet, the upholstery on the chair, all these wonderful amenities which he loves so much don't suddenly disappear. And he wakes up and it turns out that everything just was a dream. But he still has to manage everything, must take it in his paws and can never be sure of anything or simply lean back and relax. Sometimes atop the cat tree, it really works. Then he is on cloud nine. And yes, in his dreams, he is even cooler than in real life. And just things are going to be fine. How did he meet Flix? I want to know. Well, there was a car that picked him up, he tells me. And then he was at the animal shelter, and there was Flix. And he felt sorry for Flix, who was so sad, and something in him reminded him of his sadness. It touched his soul, and he felt responsible and started to protect him the way he always protected everyone. This seems to be my task, he said, blinking his eyes. I just felt it within me, and that's how it will always be. We're all connected. He looks into the distance, and I sense that I have an old soul in front of me, which had already lived many times and carries wisdom that transcends a normal cat life. Yes, he says, I have to protect them. I found them, like they found me. It was just like it was with Flix. I had a feeling inside. It was supposed to be like that. I want them to be happy, that they don't worry so much about things that aren't worth worrying about. Life often provides miracles. One must only recognize them and take advantage of the opportunity and always be alert. The trust thing, I still have to learn. Tell them, please, that I love them very much and I feel like it when the floor is warm in the bathroom. And I just like everything the way it is. Thank you. When I read how he met Flix and took care of him right away because he was so sad, it made me tear up, and it still does again and again. My Max, such a brave hero, a savior, always ready to help, feeling responsible to take charge, to be there for others. Perfect feline leadership. What a wonderful soul, my Max. And yes, the dental restoration had hurt his feline self confidence quite a bit. He didn't want to talk more about it. Well, yes, I can imagine. But there was no alternative for it. The broken teeth would have continued to damage his kidneys and caused him even more pain. Next chapter, it's called Another Visit with a Vet. Shortly before Christmas, we took both of them to the vet. Max was due for his kidney checkup with geriatric blood panel, and we also wanted a geriatric blood panel done for Flix and wanted to have him examined because his vomiting returned at times. We didn't think this could be caused simply by any stress he was feeling. Max provided a blood sample and allowed his blood pressure to be taken. He seemed to disregard most of the action, but commented on it with an occasional hiss in the vet's direction. The vet only said, Max was such a good boy when he came here for the first time and his blood pressure was very low. Was definitely the operative word. He obviously didn't have that problem anymore. His blood pressure now was close to the upper tolerance limit, but didn't need to be treated as of now. And of course, he was back in his max prime energy. Unfortunately, his creatinine level had hardly gone down, although we had hoped it would after the extraction of his bad teeth. But it hadn't gone up either, which was a positive development. Stable in a bad way, said the vet tersely and to the point. She also recommended extraction of the upper molars in the near future because they had become worse just over the last few months. Even I could recognize that. The gums were slightly inflamed and tartar had built back up in record time. However, Mac didn't seem to feel any pain, so we planned to have the next surgery in the spring to have enough time between the surgeries. My poor Max, another dental surgery very soon. Well, it couldn't be avoided because it would keep his kidneys working longer and allow him a more comfortable life. We just had to have it done. Then it was Flick's turn. He was so nervous that his paws turned bright red. He was very tense, but endured the exam and blood draw patiently. After the vet felt his abdomen, an ultrasound exam was performed. I remained close to his head and stroked him and talked to him the whole time. He was able to relax for a few moments, but tensed up right away. That didn't make the ultrasound exam any easier or shorter. His intestinal wall was too thick due to inflammation. The size of his kidneys had decreased, and they had changed slightly on the surface, but were in much better shape than Max. The vet was planning to contact us as soon as the blood results were available. Then Flix had reached the end of his patience. He was very stressed and peed. I put him on his blanket and lifted him in my arm and cuddled him. Even though he still didn't like to be picked up, for the moment, Cat Mom's arm seemed to be the safest place. He hid right away and became almost invisible in the crook of my arm. We needed to return home quickly to the calm and secure environment. The blood results arrived a few days later with recommendations for his therapy. But first, Christmas was almost here. It was the first for both of them in their new forever home, and the first one for us with our wonderful cats. The next chapter is called Stress on New Year's Eve. We had the foresight not to plan anything for our first New Year's Eve with the two of them. We planned to stay at home and spend the time with our cats. We had no idea yet how they would react to all the firecracker noise. The stress began a few days earlier. My mother-in-law was visiting us, and a few days before New Year's Eve, we wanted to go out to a restaurant together. A wonderful idea, we thought. Unfortunately, on that day, 3 days before New Year's Eve, people were already setting off firecrackers like crazy. Flix was quite nervous. You could see the uneasiness in his eyes, a look of fear returned. He was pacing around, very tense. Max, at least outwardly, didn't seem to mind anything that was going on. When we got ready to go, Flix had suddenly disappeared. We couldn't find him in any of his hiding places. You can feel quite silly when you can't find an indoor cat, but everyone who has cats knows that this is part of the program. So we went up, then down, up again, down again, searched all the usual places, including the storage closet and under the bed. No luck. We checked all closets and cabinets. I would never leave without knowing where Flix was or how he was doing. Suddenly, I got an idea and looked under the dresser in the hallway. He had never crawled under there, but my intuition guided me to look there. And there he was, trembling in fear under the dresser, although we didn't really understand how he had been able to even get under there. Michael, our mother-in-law, went to the restaurant and I stayed with Flix and Max. There was no way I was going to leave Flix home alone when he was so scared. We lifted the dresser up a little with a few paperback books so he was able to crawl out without twisting his hips or some other part of his body. Later this evening, he came back out and fled into my lap. He felt secure there. I felt how tense and nervous he was all over. The same happened for several evenings, including New Year's Eve. Flix was completely exhausted. Max kept walking with majestic movements through Flix territory and tried more than usually to give up strength and control to calm his friend Flix down. The following year, everything became a little less tense at this occasion. Flix had built up much more trust and was able to manage his fears much better. The stress had happened the following year, began shortly after New Year's Eve. The next chapter is called Flix Therapy Alternatives Aren't Needed. When Flix's blood results arrived and the diagnosis was completed, the vet called me. Inflammation in the bowel, gastroenteritis, which had already been detected through the ultrasound, could also be seen in the blood test. The inflammation and kidney test levels were slightly higher. We needed to definitely keep an eye on that. But first, his gastroenteritis had to be brought under control. A short, relatively high-dose cortisone therapy was recommended to me. If that didn't help, another visit to the vet would be required. At that point in time, I had not familiarized myself with this topic. So I went ahead and accepted a recommendation, received the prednisolone for him, and we started the therapy. That should work, so I thought. Flix had a completely different idea about his therapy. He rejected the cortisone outright. I first put it in treats and liverwurst. Both of these ruses worked great with Max, but failed miserably with Flix. He took apart the treat piece that I had worked hard to assemble, revealed the tablet, and looked at me accusingly. Do you want to poison me? Okay, this wasn't going to work. Hiding the pills in food, no matter how well I tried, was doomed from the start. That was my first attempt, so I thought about other smarter ways to get it done. I found empty capsules in different sizes and tablet dispensers for cats, so I ordered these utensils. Well, what can I say? Flix remained steadfast, very steadfast. He just didn't want to take his medication at all. Everyone who has cats experiences these situations. You finally have the tablet in the empty capsule, and somehow you're able to put your cat between your legs and with the tablet dispenser successfully place the tablet into the cat's mouth. I breathed a sigh of relief and praised Flix for his good attitude. And then a moment later, I hear him choke, and wham, the tablet was lying next to me on the sofa, behind the sofa, under the table, or was vomited directly in front of my feet. Flix was very good at all these variations. Okay, I do listen to my little tigers. I want to know what they think. The message was utterly clear. Whatever you're trying to do, I'm not going to take the pills. We needed to find other ways. I spent most of the next days researching what would be an alternative method for treating gastroenteritis, which to be meant without cortisone. Because of Max CKD, I had already joined a Facebook group on that subject. Now I looked up for a group for Flix problem and found one. Unfortunately, the members were rather narrow-minded and condemned everything that wasn't related to academic medicine. Well, that wasn't helpful at this point. I never condemn academic medicine and I won't do it in the future. It certainly has its purpose, but like all other theories and approaches, it doesn't have the answers for all questions. And I'm not following any ideology. I'm rather focused on integrating and combining different approaches as required. My first goal was always to find the best therapy for the situation at hand. And for that, the patient is the most important factor. And Flix expressed himself very clearly. I would learn later that all living beings possess a specific energy frequency. It can decrease when many blockages are present in the energy field, or it can increase when these blockages are cleared. The medication which affects the patient in specific situations must suit the patient's energy frequency. In this case, it could simply not be achieved with prednisolone. Animals sense that instinctively. At last, I found a solution with TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. I found a mix of herbs for cats in tablet form called Gastro, which addressed exactly what Flix had, so I ordered it for them. You won't believe it, but these tablets were exactly right for him in this situation. Flix took them without a problem, mixed in with his food, and later in cat cream, no problem. And his condition improved. He stopped vomiting almost completely. And the next chapter is called Hay Cats. What, an indoor cat and hay? How is this going to work? Well, I only needed encouragement from my good friend from Munich, Beate, who brought with her real Bavarian hay for both of them. She knew from her own experience how much cats love to roll around in hay, so she decided that Max and Flix also needed hay. When the high-quality Bavarian hay arrived, I redesignated a cardboard box as Hay Box. Then I was eager to find out how the two boys would react to the hay. And wouldn't you know, they had a blast with their hay in the middle of the living room, mind you. They tried out many things. First, Max, being the boss cat, had to inspect the hay. It met all his tough criteria, so he jumped into the box and lay down in the hay. Then Flix could also dare come closer and take a whiff. But Max would not allow him to get in the box at the same time. They chased each other into and out of the box. They were absolutely delighted during the first year, then during the second year, and then they stopped. When Flix was alone for a few months in 2017, he wasn't interested in the hay anymore, and later, how he didn't really take to it either, the hay period just faded out. It was a lot of fun, which had a lot to do with Max. He most certainly remembered his time at the farm. He often spent many hours sleeping peacefully in the hay. Flix, judging from his paws, had never been much of a fan of the outdoors, avoiding it except for the time he ended up in the streets. So, are you up for another short chapter? I just read one more chapter for you. It's called Flix's Heart. Our next step was to determine the health of Flix's heart. Because of the temporarily paralyzed front leg in our emergency visit, I made up an appointment for an ultrasound exam. Our vet at the clinic is specialized in cardiology, so she was the best person to go to. After the experience with Max CKD, I did my research before the visit and looked for possible causes. I learned which heart conditions had to be considered for older cats, what the symptoms are, and how the condition could be diagnosed. HCM, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, was the name of the scary disease. It is an increase in the size of the heart. What can happen, unfortunately, not infrequently, is that the enlarged atrium causes more clots to form. If a clot forms, comes loose, and gets into the blood circulation, it warrants the highest level of alert. These clots usually become attached to a point on the main artery, the aorta, which is responsible for the blood supply to the hind legs. If such an aortic thrombosis develops, it can lead to immediate paralysis in the hind limbs and immense pain. This is usually the death sentence for the affected cat. Mike, a dear friend in England, had lost his 15-year-old cat to that condition just a few weeks ago. Therefore, it was very important to clear up the situation. Flix's vet explained to me that we would examine the two atria, the upper chambers of the heart. If they were okay, meaning not enlarged, we would be able to stop the ultrasound right away. And as luck had it, that's how it went. Flix's heart was healthy. I drove home very relieved. For Flix, this was an especially good experience because no one stuck a needle in his body. I can't even describe what a great weight had been lifted from me. Everything was good. We had accompanied him and helped him out of his depression, and he enjoyed life again. And his heart was healthy. My joy knew no bounds. The paralyzed leg had just been an extremely painful limp that had fallen asleep. Or it was a harbinage of things to come a half year from now, but one thing at a time. Thank you very much for your time, for being here with me. I hope you enjoyed a few chapters of my book, Soul Cats. You can find it everywhere on Amazon or other bookstores or online shops. You can get it as a paperback, as an ebook, or also as a wonderful audiobook. And please feel free to also check out my website, soulcats.com, and it's spelled soul-cats.com. There's a lot of more information about the book, about myself, and also the services I provide. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you here soon. Bye.